M. Morales, and this is the chapter 2 of our nursing research course, Ethics in Research. So why it's important to discuss ethics in research? Because it is the foundation of all researches, may it be a experimental, descriptive, or even exploratory research. There should be an ethics. It should be a acceptable in the society, and it should be with sound methodology that is not um, that the subject will not be compromised, or our informants will not be compromised, and they should be protected in any harm. So that's the importance of ethics. So based on our um, experiences today in the pandemic era, we have different cases of COVID-19 that COVID-19 patient that receive this um, medications that presumed the can be a cure to COVID-19. Thus, there should have an ethically sound methodologies, and even the experiment should have, uh, though it's not proven today, but it should have a least effect to the patient. Thus, some of the news you've heard already that some of the clinical trials of vaccine have been stopped due to what adverse events brought by these vaccines to our patients or enrolled informants or subjects. Our learning objectives for today is to discuss the ethical principles needed in conducting research. We'll discuss comprehensively the ethical principles behind a research proposal and research project, understand the basic human rights in protecting research as a subject, know the different ethical issues and mishaps in doing and completing a research study. So later we'll know what are some of the avoidable and fallacies or um, not to observe in doing a research for us not to be sued or uh, will not be liable to our informants and also to the educational community. Ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas in the sense that we should balance the risk and benefits of your research. If there is a lot of benefits and it entails lower a percent or lower percentage of harm, it can be permissible. However, if it's the reverse of that, that there's a higher risk than benefits, it can be turned down by the ethics review board. And it should be beneficial in such a way that our respondents, our informants, should be informed regarding these benefits and also the corresponding risk if he or she joined the research, and he have the power to withdraw, he have the right to withdraw in our study. So based on the current status of the world, some of the ethical dilemmas is, would enrolling a patient with COVID to a compassionate drug such as specific drug for possible COVID cure, we should understand that we should weigh the benefits and the risk. If it entails, there's higher risk of cardiac problems, we should on that moment discontinue the trial or the experiment. But if there's a evidence that there's a higher benefit, so we can continue and monitor the performance and the effect of such medication. Based on the American Nurses Association Code of Research Ethics, these are their provision. First, employment in setting where research is conducted. So in US, the researcher should be employed and should follow their protocols and standards based on the code of ethics. No? And there's responsibility to protect the rights of human subject. So as a nurse, we're advocate of the patient, and we should protect every time and always the rights of our patients, such as uh, the right to disclose, the right to information, the right to withhold from treatment, the right not to participate in any research. Scope of application. It is ethically sound if you discuss to the informants what are the scope of this application. So the application of ethics is based on if it's biological or if it's a procedural research. Thus, the ethics board will come up with its decision to forgo or to revise your proposal. Broaden knowledge. So in research, it is reviewed. Your capability, your capacity as a researcher will be reviewed by the ethics board for us to, for them to be sure that you are capable of doing such methodology, and for it to have, for them to have the confidence that you can pursue without without any hesitation or any difficulty of your research. And we should have informed consent. What's the difference between the informed consent to a consent? So informed consent is the patient or the respondents or our informants should be fully informed regarding your research. Later we'll discuss the elements of informed consent, and the consent is a form which he or she could could be uh, could have been, he read it or not and he signed it, so that's a consent. But informed consent, it should be understood by our respondents. Representation in human subject committee. So in research ethics, some of our responsibility as if you will be joining the research ethics board is for us to um, check if the methodologies, the data gathering procedure could entails risk or harm to the human subject. So for ethical principles, we have three: the beneficence, respect for human dignity, justice. We have beneficence, freedom from harm. So again, let's go back to the the ethical dilemma, which there should be a higher percentage of benefits than the risk or harm, and there should be no harm, or there should have a benefit to our patients, such as if in COVID-19 trials, the medications that we have been in on trials, so we're giving this medication. However, if there's trend of abnormalities of ECG or even the cardiac markers, we should stop immediately because it entails harm or it can cause death to the patient. So that's beneficence. Right to protection and exploitation. It's more on let them, let our participants understand the process, understand what the research is, the methodology, the data gathering, and even the outcome of your research, for them to be protected and not to be exploited, because exploitation is very observed in our vulnerable groups. Some of our indigenous people, some of our cultural minority groups have been one of the victims of exploitation of research because uh, they haven't been educated regarding the research. Thus, in beneficence, it should be on the benefit, or we should have a symbiotic relationship. It's a benefit for the researcher and also the benefit for the informants or the respondents. Respect for human dignity. Right to self-determination. Let your respondents decide without any coercion. It's voluntary informed consent. Let them decide on their own. Sir, if the patient has no capacity to decide for him or herself, have them we should have an alternative. So the significant others that had been assigned by the legal counsel, and under the respect for human dignity is right to full disclosure. So again, let's go back to the COVID-19 trials. So right to full disclosure, it should be clear that to the patient that had been receiving this trial medication, it should be clear that it's not totally the cure. It is experimental. It's an experiment that could cure or could not cure COVID-19. So we should be honest enough to our respondents. And last is justice. Justice is to be fair, right? For fair treatment. Yes, we have experimental studies, but we should not negate the ethical principle of justice. That all should be fair. The treatment should be fair to all, regardless of race, gender, or even class. And right to privacy. Right to privacy is it entails that the informants cannot be that there should be observance of confidentiality and anonymity. No? So it could not some of the details should not be divulged to public, or and there's no such thing of details that can attribute to the patient or to the respondents. So again, this is the ethical principles that should be observed in research: beneficence, respect for human dignity, and justice. Basic human rights of research subject. First is right to informed consent. Again and again, it is informed consent. Let them read all the informed consent. Let them ask question. Let them critique. Let them discuss with you the consent, the process, the procedure, even the results and outcomes of your research. Right to refuse or withdraw from participation. As researcher, we should accept the fact that there are respondents that will withdraw from our research or from our study. Thus, we have 10% of overspill of our sampling for us to have that confidence level and we achieve the sampling size. But you cannot coerce them. You cannot bribe them to continue joining your research because you've wanted to. They have the right to refuse. Next is right to privacy. We have already discussed this, the anonymity and confidentiality. In the right of privacy, all of your data gathering tools such as interview guide, tape, recorded tapes, videos, audio tapes, even the survey questionnaire should be confined in a lock cabinet, or should ensure the security of all of this data, because we should first observe the Data Privacy Act in the Philippines and also the rights of our research subject. Right to confidentiality and anonymity of data, and right to be protected from harm. Okay? So, right to be protected from harm, again, we go back to the ethical principle of beneficence. So, it should overweigh the benefit, overweigh the risk. or harm of the patient. These are the elements of informed consent. First is the participant status. What is his or her role in your research? Is he or she a participant, or he or she as a external expert? So please place the details regarding the participant status. Second is study goals. uh, Let your participants understand what is your research, what's your objective, and even your goals. Types of data to be collected. Is it an interview? Is it a survey questionnaire? Is it a video? Is it a photo? Fourth is the procedures. How will you conduct the research? Is it a survey questionnaire that can be finished by 10 to 15 minutes? Or it could be a 1 to 2 hours interview or focus group discussion. Fifth is the nature of commitment. In the nature of commitment, you should have set of appointments from them. Uh, Specifically, if it's qualitative research, you will go back 2 to 3 times for validation of your teams or associated meaning. And the sponsorship should be clear and should disclose, is this sponsored by a specific authority or a specific private institution. And how did you select the participants? So, are there criterias like in the COVID-19 trial or medication trial that there's specific selection because all of those should have a positive result of COVID-19 and potential risk. You should discuss this and disclose this to our participants that this medication in the proposal of the medication trial, it has some of adverse effects, and this may happen to our subjects. Nine is potential benefits. The potential benefits is you may be cured in COVID-19 or there will be less signs and symptoms. Alternative, no? Some of the medication is not available and should have an alternative treatment or medication that will be given to our patients. Compensation, it should be clear to our respondents and the informants that they will be compensated or they will not have that compensation. No? So it should be clear for them. 12 is confidentiality pledge or anonymity guarantee. So as a researcher, it's your responsibility to have the data gathered, the survey, the videos, the photos be anonymized and let the participants feel that it is you will handle it with uh, in the observance of confidentiality and anonymity. And it should be voluntary consent. Voluntary consent means that it's not coerced or and it's not being pushed because of you want to finish the study. 14 is right to withdraw, and last is contact information. Why would we include the contact information? For them to connect with us and to clarify some of the items in the informed consent. Ethical issues in research. Research misconduct. What are the research misconduct? Based on um, the book, our book is there's fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. So fabrication, you created, no, you've created works based on um, or based on false truths, based on no standards or references. Okay, on your study. That's fabrication. You're doing false um, study. Falsification is the results you've gathered in your research, you've modified it, you change it. So thus your research became falsified, or it it removes its confidence and credibility as a researcher. And last is plagiarism. You copy paste all the literary or the professional works of others without citing them. This fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism is some of the research misconduct observed in research. And it saddened me that vulnerable groups are also being an issue in research misconduct, because some of our indigent people is we know that in a poverty line. Thus, some of the researcher um, get that opportunity, see that opportunity for them to use, and for them to create a research from these vulnerable groups. So please observe your research as ethically sound and legally acceptable. Okay? So I want to challenge you, fellow researchers, that in conducting research is not only the how we created, how we plan to research, how good is our title, but let's also consider, is it ethically sound? Is it legally acceptable? Because we cannot pursue our research if it's not ethically and legally done. Okay? Then for our learners check, so now after our lecture, now you can discuss the ethical principles needed in conducting research. Now you can understand the basic human rights in protecting research subjects. And now you know the different ethical issues and misconducts in doing and completing a research study for you to not to do it. Okay? So to that, good day and love research.